You agree we're in a constitutional crisis, right? You do. Okay, great. That entails a reality in which we have to exist beyond what's traditional because it's unprecedented, right? Because what? Because the Constitution is incomplete. We cannot do anything at that end. So we have to go to American theory. We have to think of the political solution, not a legal solution, because law has never ended tyranny, because law is to rectify wrongdoing. But when that is a conspiracy of mass scale organization, how do you stop that when everything that it can do has not yet been done? And even when it does things, it can manipulate loopholes of the Constitution in order to be capable of saying, well, I have the authority because if it's not forbidden, then how are you going to forbid me to do it, right? And this recognition that this administration has already consolidated power within the executive, so the administrative agencies, and also the legislative, so Congress, right? Federal Congress, and also the legislative in the red states, right? And also, in some parts, the courts, particularly the highest court, the Supreme Court, right? They have consolidated this power. What does that mean? Now, MAGA thinks that it's hilarious because they think we have no other authorities, right? Because they position their only excuse, which is that the federal is above the states. They didn't think that anyone would actually go to our fundamentals and research to check whether they were right. They are not right. The federal above the state is a part of constitutional supremacy, of course, under the legalities, right? But under the political reasoning, which is the Constitution is a political contract more than a legal contract, it positions that the Constitution, so the text, is above the branches, it's above the people, it's above every single thing, which is why we don't have absolute democracy. You can democratically elect someone in, and if the Constitution says forbids them, then that doesn't mean that that elected official now becomes part of the government, right? Because they are forbidden from the Constitution. Now, the fact that there was a Chief Justice in the 1800s who literally said that that provision wasn't self executing doesn't change the fact that it is there, right? So that means that we don't have absolute of anything because anything absolute leads to tyranny. That is according to our founding fathers. But they laugh because they don't think we have resolved. However, American theory positions that states have an authority to utilize force against encroaching tyrant federal government. And the video that I'm gonna upload after this is going to be a longer version of this so that you don't say that I'm full of shit. Because ultimately, it's not that we're recreating the political wheel, it's that we're learning from the blueprints that we already have and seeing how that applies in a recognition that the Constitution is incomplete. So, therefore, we will not find our solution within law, but we will find it within politics, particularly American politics, American theory, right? So, this provides a reality in which states can actually utilize the use of force against an encroaching invasion that's domestic, right? And that's where that video is going to move towards. However, I need us to recognize that just because this is a strategy that's available doesn't mean that it's going to be a strategy that like states will want to use because of the consequences that it can apply, because of how it can erode the illusion of the union, erode the illusion of peace, right? So it's going to be very hard to push state government to go through this route. However, you need you to recognize that instead of saying we're cooked, we're doomed, you have to recognize that we have strategies. Whether we want to use them or not is not a fact that we don't have strategies. It's that we're too coward to actually maximize on them, right? And then also it's within a context, right? So it's within a context of what I thought originally was exhausting the courts, which is complicated because if they're also consolidated, how do you exhaust the court when it's going to refuse to exhaust itself, right? But what John Locke positions within those texts is actually that when there is a loss of life, particularly I would say a U.S. citizen, because obviously you can negate that there was any like fancy intentional things if it's a migrant because they did an illegal thing. But if it's a U.S. citizen, then it's more likely that that's going to put on weight. And ultimately, because of that, because the law failed to actually rectify that, where the federal cannot position that type of harm on American citizens, that means that a state, through its commander in chief, can utilize executive powers in order to maximize on defense, including that utilization of a militia that's built within the state to protect against the federal government. Now, the purpose is defense, not nearly offense, so it's not like a war, but it is a strategy. At the forefront, I wanted to acknowledge that revolution or even a CW doesn't necessarily have to mean armed or with blood. It can also include things such as the boycott in Disney, right? Yes, I'm Prop 50. The music festival. So all of these are also avenues in which we have pressured, avenues in which we can revolt, right? And I need us to recognize that revolution doesn't have to be scary. Revolution doesn't have to be illegal. Revolution just means a shift in mentality, a shift in transformative governance, which is what we need, right? So even if we don't get to that avenue that everyone is scared of, it's still revolutionary. What you are doing, it's revolutionary to vote yes on Prop 50. It is revolutionary to think outside the box and to maximize on our defense, even when seems like we're going to lose, because we're only going to lose when we do not fight.